Look around you. Look at the world we have built. Our cities of steel and glass pierce the clouds. Our networks of light and data encircle the globe. We feel permanent. We see ourselves as the definitive, final chapter of Earth's long story. We imagine that 1 billion years from now, some alien intelligence sifting through the cosmic dust will find the skeleton of the Empire State Building or the placid face of Mount Rushmore. We believe, deeply and instinctively, that our legacy is etched in stone. But this is a fantasy. It is the comforting illusion of a species that has only existed for a geological instant. The planet does not think in human terms. The Earth is a grand, slow, relentless engine of erosion, subduction, and renewal. It is a library where the books are constantly being pulped and rewritten. After just a few million years, a time frame so short it's barely a rounding error in the planet's 4.5 billion year history, every single direct trace of our civilization would be gone. Every city, every statue, every factory would be ground to dust, pressure cooked into new rock, or swallowed by the Earth's molten mantle. This is our fundamental mistake. We have been explorers looking for something that cannot exist. The vast majority of the Earth's surface is over 100 million years old. If a civilization rose and fell in, say, the Eocene epoch 50 million years ago, there would be no ruin to find. There would be no crumbling library to translate, no buried superhighway to excavate. So how would we know? If an advanced industrial civilization existed in the deep past, what would its signature even be? This is not just a late-night philosophical question. It is a formal thought experiment proposed in 2018 by two very serious scientists, astrophysicist Adam Frank and NASA climatologist Gavin Schmidt. They called it the Silurian hypothesis, named after the intelligent, ancient reptiles from the television show Doctor Who. Their question was simple, and it is profoundly unsettling. If we are searching for a technosignature, what if we've been looking in the wrong place? What if the clearest evidence of an industrial past isn't out there in space, but buried right here, beneath our feet? Frank and Schmidt argued we wouldn't find a thing. We would find a trace. We would find a shadow burned into the rock. The only truly global fingerprint an industrial civilization leaves is the one it imprints on the entire planetary system. Think about our own time, the Anthropocene. We are burning fossil fuels at a ferocious rate, digging up ancient, sequestered carbon from the ground and releasing it into the air. This fundamentally changes the chemistry of the entire planet, from the atmosphere to the oceans. That sudden, violent spike of carbon dioxide would be visible in sediment cores and ice layers millions of years from now. A sharp, unnatural anomaly in the Earth's long, rhythmic breathing. What else? Our widespread, intensive agriculture would leave a sudden burst of strange nitrogen isotopes from synthetic fertilizers. Our addiction to plastics would create a new, bizarre chemical layer that would utterly baffle future geologists. A plasticine stratum woven into the stone. And then there is the most unambiguous signature of all, the lingering, unmistakable radioactive isotopes from nuclear events, whether from power generation or a self-inflicted final war. This hypothesis opens a Pandora's box of speculation. It forces us to look at the geological record not as a story of nature, but as a potential crime scene. Could an intelligent dinosaur, a Silurian, have built a short-lived civilization 66 million years ago, only to have its chemical signature almost entirely erased by the chaos of the asteroid impact? It's a fascinating idea. But Frank and Schmidt's paper was a serious academic exercise. It forces us to confront what evidence really means. It forces us to ask if we've been blind, sifting the rocks for the wrong kind of clue. And that is where our journey truly begins. Because the Silurian hypothesis was aimed at the deep past, at dinosaurs or unknown species separated from us by tens of millions of years. But we have a much more recent and a much more human mystery right in front of us. We know, as an undisputed scientific fact, that for most of our history, the Earth was populated by other kinds of human. They were not our ancestors, they were our contemporaries. The Neanderthals, the Denisovans, the enigmatic hobbits of Flores. We have found their bones. We have found their simple stone tools. For decades, this is all we've looked for. We have been digging for the evidence of a primitive past, for hammerstones, flint blades and sharpened sticks. But what if we've been looking with the wrong lens? What if we took the rigorous logic of the Silurian hypothesis, this search for industrial shadows, and applied it not to dinosaurs 66 million years ago, but to a different human species 100,000 years ago? We've been searching for their huts. Should we have been searching for their carbon footprint? There is an image, lodged so deeply in our collective consciousness that we mistake it for truth. It is the march of progress. You know it. The stooped ape, followed by the clumsy hominid, then the brutish caveman, and finally, standing tall and proud, the pinnacle. Us. Modern man, the inevitable result, the winner of a 4-million-year race. I am here to tell you that this image is the single most damaging misconception in all of human science. It is tidy, it is linear, and it is profoundly, fundamentally wrong. The story of human evolution is not a straight line. It is not a ladder. It is a bush, a tangled, chaotic, and magnificent branching tree, with countless offshoots, dead ends, and parallel experiments. And for the vast majority of our time on this planet, that tree was crowded. We have lived in this strange, unique state of being the only human species on Earth for about 10,000 to 15,000 years. It feels normal to us, but this loneliness is an anomaly. It is the exception, not the rule. For hundreds of thousands of years before this, the Earth was a multi-human planet. Let's set the stage. Picture the world just 70,000 years ago, a geological heartbeat. We, Homo sapiens, are just beginning our great migration out of Africa, a young species with a restless spirit. But the world we are entering is not empty. It is already owned. The vast, cold continents of Europe and Western Asia are the undisputed kingdoms of the Neanderthals. They are not our ancestors. They are our cousins. And they have been living, adapting, and thriving in those harsh lands for 300,000 years before we even show up. They are the established power. They are physically stronger, with brains larger than our own, and they are masters of their Ice Age environment. And as we move east into Asia, the map gets even more complex. We encounter another human population, a mysterious ghost lineage we call the Denisovans. For decades, we knew them from nothing more than a single finger bone and a molar tooth found in a Siberian cave. Yet their genetic fingerprint tells us they were a vast and successful population, stretching from the frozen mountains of Tibet to the tropical forests of Southeast Asia. And the cast doesn't end there. On the isolated island of Flores in Indonesia, a completely different, third kind of human lives. Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the Hobbit, standing barely 3 feet tall. This tiny, small-brained species used stone tools and hunted dwarf elephants. It's possible that even more ancient human lines, like the long-lived Homo erectus, still lingered in forgotten corners of the globe. This was not a planet of man. It was a planet of men, plural, a world of many humans. So, this is not a story of US replacing them. This is a Game of Thrones. This is a world where multiple intelligent, capable houses control different territories. The Neanderthals are the robust lords of the icy north. The Denisovans are the mysterious, widespread power of the east. And we, Homo sapiens, are the new, ambitious players expanding from the south. The old story was simple. We arrived, we were smarter, and we outcompete them into extinction. It was a story of conquest, of one species replacing another. But the genetic revolution of the last 2 decades has given us a shocking new script. The proof is not in the stone. It is in our blood. We now know, as an undeniable scientific fact, that we interbred. That is a polite word for what happened. We met these other humans and we had children with them. Today, almost every person on Earth with non-African ancestry carries between 1 and 4% Neanderthal DNA in their genome. Many populations in Asia, Australia, and the Pacific Islands carry significant amounts of Denisovan DNA as well. Let's stop and truly absorb what this means. This was not a war between 2 completely alien species. This was relations. It implies a level of recognition. You do not, or at least you cannot, successfully interbreed with something that is biologically alien. This means we saw each other at the most fundamental level as human. It shatters the convenient, solid wall we have built between us and them forever. They are in us. This fact, this intimate genetic exchange, must change every question we ask. We have been obsessed with the idea of competition. We have spent a century asking if they were smart enough to be human, if they had language, if they had art. We now know they were, at the very least, human enough to be our partners. And this leads to a new and far more revolutionary hypothesis. We know we traded genes. Did we also trade ideas? We have been looking at this all wrong. We've been looking for a simple, linear progression, for a story of one species winning. But what if the story is one of exchange? What if we were not just competitors but also, at times, students? We know we got crucial genetic adaptations from them, like immune system boosts from Neanderthals or high-altitude adaptations from Denisovans. But did we also get culture? Did we learn new tool-making techniques, new hunting strategies, or even new spiritual beliefs from these established, ancient human populations? What if we were the barbarians, and they were the ones with the 300,000-year-old traditions? We've been looking for their advancement in all the wrong places. What does the word advanced actually mean to you? Think about it. For most of us, it conjures images of microchips, rocket engines, and the digital glow of a smartphone screen. We have a technological fetish. We measure intelligence by the complexity of the gadgets we build, and we assume this is the only yardstick that matters. This deep-set bias, this technological arrogance, is precisely what has blinded us for over a century. We have been sifting the dirt for our own reflection, and in doing so, we have missed the true story. To find real advancement, we must look past the materials and see the mind at work. And there is no better place to start this reevaluation than with our most slandered relative, the Neanderthal. For over 100 years, we have used them as a dark mirror. We defined ourselves as human by defining them as not. They were the brutish, club-wielding, knuckle-dragging failures that we, the advanced Homo sapiens, were destined to replace. But this caricature, this caveman, never existed. It was a comforting monster we invented to make our own success feel inevitable. The real Neanderthal mind was something else entirely. The final, unassailable proof comes from the sacred darkness of Spanish caves. In places like Maltreviso and Ardales, we find art. We find stenciled hands placed on the wall as a signature. We find geometric grids and curtains of red pigment, daubed on stalagmites. The staggering part is their age. These paintings have been dated to 65,000 years ago. This is more than 20,000 years before the first Homo sapiens are known to have set foot in Europe. This is not imitation. This is, quite possibly, the independent invention of art itself, conceived in a mind that was not our own. This symbolic breakthrough was not an isolated incident. They were thinkers. They were aesthetes. We find eagle talons from 130,000 years ago, carefully cut and notched, worn as jewelry. We find shells, drilled and stained with red ochre, transported miles from the coast to be worn as adornments. This behavior is not about survival. It is about identity. It is about culture. It is the physical manifestation of abstract thought, the very trait we once declared was our exclusive, divine spark. Their technology, too, was far from the simple rock on a stick we imagine. We now have definitive evidence that Neanderthals created the world's first synthetic material. They manufactured a powerful, waterproof glue from the bark of birch trees. This is not something you discover by accident. It is a complex, multi-step chemical process, a form of dry distillation. It requires a deep understanding of materials, precise control of fire to heat the bark in a low-oxygen environment, and, most importantly, the ability to pass this complex, abstract knowledge from one generation to the next. But perhaps the most advanced trait of all was not their art, nor their tools, but their humanity. We find Neanderthal skeletons like the Old Man of Shanidar in Iraq. He lived for decades with a crushed skull that likely blinded him in one eye, a withered right arm, and severe arthritis. He would have been useless as a hunter, a burden to a brutish tribe, and yet his community fed him, protected him, and healed his wounds for years. They buried their dead, sometimes with flowers. This is advanced social cohesion. This is empathy, a concept our own modern, advanced world still struggles with. The Neanderthals, then, were a parallel humanity, but at least we have their bones. When we turn our gaze east, to the ghost lineage we call the Denisovans, the mystery deepens to an almost chilling degree. We have almost nothing of them. A few teeth, a jawbone, a single fingerbone fragment from a Siberian cave. For years, they were little more than a whisper in our own DNA. But the artifacts found with them, in those same cave layers, suggest a level of technological sophistication that is, frankly, bewildering. I'm talking about the Denisovan bracelet. It is not made of bone or ivory. It is carved from a beautiful, dark green stone called chlorite, a material whose source is over 120 miles away from the cave. It is polished to a high sheen and dated to between 40 and 50,000 years ago. But that is not the part that stops archaeologists in their tracks. On the side of the bracelet, there is a tiny, perfectly drilled hole, barely a millimeter wide, for a thong or a charm. Russian scientists who analyzed this artifact concluded the hole was not, and could not, be made by hand. Its precision, the stability of its rotational axis, and its microscopic grooves are all characteristic of a high-speed, stationary drill, something akin to a modern drill press. We are talking about an artifact that might be 50,000 years old. What kind of mind, what kind of technology creates this? Was it a lost mechanical device? Or was it a technique so refined, so perfected over millennia, that it produced a result we can only replicate with our own industrial machines? These are not isolated curiosities. This is a pattern. These other humans had art. They had symbolic language. They had sophisticated technology that, in some cases, we still don't understand. They had minds. They were not a clumsy first draft. They were a finished, brilliant, and deeply human final product. We must stop asking if they were advanced enough to be like us. The evidence is clear. The real question is, in what ways were they advanced beyond us? For all of our history, we have told ourselves a very simple, linear story. First, we were hunters. Then, about 10,000 years ago, we invented agriculture. Farming led to surplus, which allowed for permanent villages. Those villages grew into cities. Cities required laws, which gave us writing. Writing led to history. This neat, clean package, agriculture, then cities, then complex culture, is the foundation of our entire model of civilization. And then, in the 1990s, we found Göbekli Tepe. In the hills of modern-day Turkey, we uncovered something that should not exist. It is a vast, stunning complex of massive, T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, arranged in perfect circles. They are carved with intricate, stylized reliefs of animals: scorpions, boars, and foxes. It is, without question, one of the most sophisticated monumental structures on Earth. And its age is 12,000 years. This date is not a minor detail. It is a bomb. 12,000 years old means it was built 7,000 years before the pyramids of Giza. It is 6,000 years before the invention of writing or the wheel. But here is the part that shatters our timeline forever. It was built by hunter-gatherers. The people who erected this cathedral on a hill had no agriculture, no permanent cities, no metal tools. Our entire story of civilization is backwards. It wasn't that cities and agriculture gave us religion and art. It seems the shared, complex desire to build something like this is what forced us to organize, to innovate, and perhaps even to invent farming just to feed the workers. Göbekli Tepe is the smoking gun. It is the definitive proof that primitive Homo sapiens hunter-gatherers, our own direct ancestors, possessed a level of social organization, engineering skill, and deep abstract thought that we had previously dismissed as impossible. They were not just surviving, they were building worlds. And this is where the real speculation must begin. This is the springboard for the question that changes everything. We, Homo sapiens, built Göbekli Tepe after, say, 200,000 years of existing as a species. Now, think about the Neanderthals. They existed successfully for over 300,000 years. They had larger brains. They had symbolic culture, as we've seen. If 12,000-year-old hunter-gatherers could build this, what could a species with a 300,000-year history have been capable of? What could the Denisovans, with their bafflingly precise technology, have achieved in their own vast, unrecorded timeline. But the skeptic will say, if they built such things, where are they? Where are the 100,000-year-old Neanderthal cities? This is where we must stop thinking like land dwellers and start thinking like a planet. For most of the last 100,000 years, the Earth was in the grip of an ice age. Vast continental ice sheets, 2 miles thick, locked up so much of the world's water that sea levels were 400 feet, or 120 meters, lower than they are today. Think about your own world. Where are our largest cities? Where is our prime real estate? They are on the coasts. They are in the fertile river valleys that lead to the sea. The most resource-rich, life-sustaining, and desirable land on the planet in that pre-flood world is now the continental shelf. It is buried under 400 feet of water. When the ice caps melted, they didn't just melt gently. The end of the Ice Age was a period of unimaginable cataclysm, of global superfloods and rapid, violent sea level rise that would have submerged an area the size of North and South America combined. If any advanced coastal culture existed, Neanderthal, Denisovan, or even an early Homo sapiens one, its remains would be 10 miles offshore, covered by millennia of silt. We have been searching for our history's foundations in the attic, while the first, and perhaps greatest, chapters are lying drowned in the basement. We and our marine archaeologist colleagues are only just now learning how to look. We are just beginning to map the lost lands of the Ice Age. And we must also free ourselves from our own material bias. Perhaps their advancement wasn't stone, steel, or concrete. What if a 300,000-year-old culture mastered organic materials? What if they built vast, complex cities from wood, from woven fibers, from living, engineered trees? Such a civilization would have been magnificent, complex, and almost completely biodegradable. It would have left behind almost no trace. Perhaps the anomaly of Göbekli Tepe is not the beginning. Perhaps it is just the first stone echo of a song that had been sung for millennia, a song from a civilization built of materials that, like their bodies, return to the earth. This journey presents us with a profound and disturbing paradox. If the world was once populated by these other, capable and cognitively advanced human species, with their own art, their own technology, and their own deep histories, where are they? If the Neanderthals were the established masters of Europe, and the Denisovans a vast power in Asia, why are we, the young upstarts from Africa, the only ones left? Why, after 4 million years of a crowded, branching human tree, are we the last lonely twig remaining? This is not just a question. It is an accusation. In cosmology, there is a chilling concept known as the Great Filter. It's a proposed answer to the Fermi paradox, the silence of the universe. It suggests there is a barrier, a challenge so difficult that almost no intelligent species ever makes it past. This filter could be the leap from single cell to complex life, or the invention of technology itself. But what if this concept applies on a smaller scale? What if the last 100,000 years on Earth was a great filter, a bottleneck for humanity itself? And if so, what was it? We must confront the first and most uncomfortable suspect. What if we were the filter? This is the darkest scenario. For decades, we told a story of a simple replacement. We were better adapted. Our tools were sharper, our minds quicker. But the evidence now points to something more direct, more familiar. The timeline is an indictment. Almost everywhere Homo sapiens arrived on the map, the other human species vanished within a few thousand years. This is not a coincidence. This is a pattern. It is the signature of an invasive species. We may not have even been smarter in the way we imagine. Perhaps we were simply more aggressive, more ruthless, or more organized in our violence. Or maybe our advancement was a subtler poison. Our rapidly expanding populations simply outconsumed them, starving them out of their own ancestral lands. We interbred, yes, but we also erased. We may have looked at the Neanderthal, seen something almost human, and decided there was only room for one. This story is not one of triumph. It is, perhaps, the story of our species' first and most successful genocide. But perhaps the killer wasn't a person at all. Perhaps it was the planet. This is our second scenario, the impersonal, apocalyptic wrath of nature. We now know that 74,000 years ago, the Toba supervolcano in Indonesia erupted. This was not a normal eruption. It was a planetary cataclysm, the largest in the last 2 million years. It plunged the globe into a volcanic winter that may have lasted for a decade, followed by a 1,000-year-long cold snap. The sun was blotted from the sky. Ecosystems collapsed worldwide. The genetic evidence is clear. This event almost ended us. Our own species was reduced to a bottleneck of perhaps only a few thousand individuals, clinging to life, our story nearly over before it began. If Toba did this to us, what did it do to the Neanderthals and the Denisovans? Perhaps their more advanced and specialized cultures were actually a weakness. Perhaps their populations, already stable and established, were shattered beyond repair. It's possible we didn't win at all. We just got lucky. Toba may have been the filter that reset the board, wiping out the incumbents and giving us, the desperate survivors, a new, empty world to claim. There is, however, a third and far more speculative possibility. It is, in many ways, the most terrifying because it turns a mirror directly on ourselves. This scenario brings us back to the Silurian hypothesis. What if one of these other species, in their 300,000-year run, did achieve something we would recognize as industrial advancement? What if their technological prowess, like the Denisovan bracelet, was not just a strange one-off, but the tip of a lost iceberg? What if they faced the Great Filter and failed? We, in our own infancy as a technological species, are already facing the existential risks we created: runaway climate change, nuclear annihilation, resource depletion. If a Neanderthal or Denisovan culture, say 120,000 years ago, began to exploit fossil fuels or developed weapons of mass destruction, they would have been the first to face this challenge. In this scenario, their disappearance is not a mystery. It is a warning. Their filter was their own success. We would find no cities of stone, only a sudden, strange spike of carbon in the ice, a layer of anomalous chemicals, or the faint radioactive echo of a war we will never understand. So why did they vanish? The truth is likely a tragic combination of all three. Perhaps Toba, the great natural filter, shattered their world. And then, into this post-apocalyptic landscape, came us, the new, relentless human filter. The final, fatal blow. We are the survivors of a planetary catastrophe, the inheritors of a world that was, for a time, broken. And we are the children of the species that did not fail the test of self-destruction. At least, not yet. The ghosts of these other humans are a testament to how fragile an advanced mind truly is. And they ask us one final question: will we be the first to pass the filter, or will we simply be the last to fail it? So we come to the end of our journey, and we must return to the question that set us on this path. Before we existed, were there multiple advanced human species? We have searched for the answer in the wrong places. We have looked for our own reflection, for cities of steel, for the carbon footprint of an industrial engine. And in that search, we found nothing. The Silurian hypothesis remains a thought experiment, a ghostly warning about our own future, not a record of a lost past. But the answer to our question is, nonetheless, a profound and world-altering yes. We simply had the wrong definition of advanced. We found something far more subtle and perhaps more important than machines. We found the 65,000-year-old handprint of a Neanderthal artist, a mind reaching out from the deep past to say, I was here. We found a 50,000-year-old bracelet, drilled with a precision that defies our understanding of its makers. We found the social compassion of a tribe that cared for its wounded, and the spiritual ambition of hunters who built a 12,000-year-old cathedral. These were not clumsy first drafts. They were other humanities, finished, complex, and complete, and they are gone. We walk this planet in a profound and unnatural loneliness. We are the last human species, the sole survivors of a rich and diverse family tree. We have been so focused on our own march of progress that we have failed to see the truth. We are not the pinnacle of a grand design. We are the survivors of a cataclysm. We are the inheritors of a haunted house, a world once filled with other minds that are now silent. But this is where the final and most staggering revelation lies. We have been searching for them in the ground, in the sediment, in the ice. We have been looking for their bones and their tools, treating them as something alien, as a them to our US. The entire time we have been looking in the wrong place. The greatest, most complete record of these lost humans is not in the earth. It is in us. We are the living archive. The ghosts are in our DNA. The us versus them line is a fiction. We, modern humans, are the proof that they never truly vanished. For every person on Earth with roots outside of Africa, your genome contains a living library. Between 1 and 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. It is a direct, unbroken line of inheritance from a population we thought was extinct. For millions in Asia, Oceania, and the Americas, you also carry the genetic signature of the mysterious Denisovans. This is not a trivial curiosity. This is not a statistic. This is a living, breathing part of you. The immune system genes you inherited from a Neanderthal 40,000 years ago may be the reason you survived a modern infection. The high-altitude adaptations of Tibetans? A gift from the Denisovans. We did not just replace them. We are them. We are the product of their survival. We are the children of their unions. We are the hybrid inheritors of their world. We set out to find lost civilizations, but what we found is a lost family. We are not, and perhaps never have been, a pure Homo sapiens. We are a blend, a tapestry, a delta where many rivers met. The answer to the question, where did the other humans go? Is that they are here. They are looking out at the world through our eyes. Their minds, their resilience, their art. It all lives on as a quiet, powerful whisper in our own genetic code. So look in the mirror. You are not just one thing. You are a multitude. You are the walking, breathing, thinking legacy of a world that was once infinitely more complex, a world of many kinds of human. We are not just a species. We are the last, living, breathing chapter of a book we have only just realized we are a part of. And the ghosts of those other humans are not gone. They are home.